Hello world. My name is Brenda again, and this is another volume in my Chronicles of a Lost Girl, AspieGirl, a neuroatypical, or I feel like part, an extension of Starford's a field guide to understanding Earthlings, and maybe in trying to understand the way you guys are, maybe it'll help you understand us a little bit better, and maybe you'll be a little bit more accepting of some of our idiosyncratic behaviors. So one of the things is expectation. Okay, I remember since I was a little girl, especially being a girl, especially being from a half Italian family, the expectations for girls differ drastically than what is expected for boys. One of them being like I said, whenever like there were any kind of familial function or whatever for holidays and all kinds of stuff like that, I would usually hang out with the guys. And I'm starting to wonder now, like if there how many faux pas I've made over the years that I don't even know about. I do know that I'm not always invited to a lot of things, and I've always known it's because I make them just as uncomfortable as they make me. For I'm sure just as the same number of reasons. Because especially for me, like they always seem like they're speaking this like secret language I don't fully comprehend, and that doesn't necessarily seem to serve any function, but I'm sure it does. One of the expectations, especially being a girl, like is I realize, is that when you go to these things, you're supposed to do certain things. One of them is kiss everybody, which I don't understand why that is a necessity. But even, barring that and sans all weird affection, other expectations as being a girl, you're expected, especially as you get older, to contribute in some way. And I never understand what that is. And I used to try, and then it was very confusing me, so I just gave up. And I didn't know why it was, and I used to get mad, and I used to try to explain to other people. But I think because I was trying to explain to people for so much that maybe it gave me, because what I would try to say is like, this doesn't make sense. Like, I feel like once a game, it's a game. It's a weird game, and it's a game that's kind of mean because there's a comedian, Sebastian Maniscalco, I think his name is. I might be saying that incorrectly. And he talks about how, like, and this is especially true in Italians, like how, like, if there's an Italian wedding, you're supposed to give money, and the bride and groom will be writing down how much, and if someone is cheap, then if they have a wedding or they have a next function, how, like, they'll give them a cheaper present, how this whole back and forth thing, and it makes my brain hurt even to think about it. And it always seems silly to me, and I didn't want to participate in that, and that was something I opted out of. I wanted, like, my whole thing is like, I'm gonna give someone a present. I want to give them a present because I like them, and I have no expectation of giving them a present back. Like, I want to give it to them because I want them as my expression of how I feel about them, and that is more important to me than giving it because it's supposed to give it, or because it's a social thing, or how much it costs, or like they have all these money requirements and all these weird things, and I got so frustrated with it I just stopped doing it. And I remember my brother one time telling me that he thought I was the most inconsiderate person, even though he didn't have to do any of it, and that made me angry. And then, like, I would go, like, I remember one time when I was, like, in my early 20s, like, there was one of those things, and all the women would get up, and they were, like, helping each other, and they were first of all, they were fighting over washing the dishes, so they were all trying to wash the dishes, and then they were fighting over who could do it, and it just seems like silliness to me. And then someone said to me, like, Brenna, why aren't you helping wash the dishes? I'm like, first of all, I didn't want to come to this thing at all, so, but I came, because my mom said I had to, so why would I come and then be part of this thing you guys are doing here, or a fight over washing the dishes when I don't even want to be here? And I guess that's being seen as rude, but I don't understand, like, why did I even, like, you know what I mean? Like, you probably know, you're like, no, if I was there right now, I would chastise you, and the appropriate behavior for a young woman to act, especially going to these things or whatever. I'm sorry, that doesn't make sense. I don't want to do these things. The other thing I used to always do is I'd either wear my headphones or I'd bring a book and I would read, like during a wedding, in the middle of a wedding, I'd be reading and I would get in trouble. And like I'm never bored. Like I'm not like I can be in my head for forever, but there are times where I feel fully trapped and uncomfortable and I just want to escape. Times that are like that are weddings or like things that I'm trapped in where I can't escape into my head or I can't read or do other things where, when I'm actually trapped in the now and I'm fully cognizant of everything. I start to get overstimulated and uncomfortable and I just want to run away. Everything starts to come in on me, and those are the times when I have to run into the bathroom and do all those weird things or whatever. And but nobody ever wants to like those things that are not appropriate, so nobody ever tries to accommodate those things. They just expect you to be able to be okay in those situations. But then if you don't go, then you get in trouble. Then if you do go and you don't act the way you're supposed to, and there's all these rules and they don't always make sense to me. And like I said, so part of me, like a lot of times I didn't participate at all, or I was like, I'm not going to play these games you guys play, and they're like, it's not a game, Brenda. And it's very, very stressful. And I know, like, when my sister-in-law came into the family, she was frustrated because she didn't understand the rules of the family, and she was like, I kind of want to be like you and just be able, and I'm like, I don't just do whatever I want. Like, it doesn't, that's not what it is. Like, then nobody will like you. And it was frustrating to me. Like, at first, she related to me because she didn't fully fit in because she wasn't Italian and she didn't understand the rules. But then she quickly got integrated, and now she's closer to most of them than I am. And, and that made me realize, like, and that's why I kind of got obsessed with the gender-based brain for a while. Because I was like, I think that there are differences in the male-female, but somehow in some ways I think more like a guy, but why? I want to understand. For a while that maybe it was like my bipolar. Like, I actually thought, like, I read studies where they said, like, if your ring finger is much longer than your index finger, then that meant a bunch of different things, and I thought maybe that was it, and I was trying to figure out all these weird things. And now I realize it's just that I truly am an alien, and my Aspergian autistic-based brain as high-functioning as it is. And so, like I said, I stopped having, like, adhering to all these expectations, because, like, again, it goes back to the whole agenda thing. Like, when I get in a relationship with someone, I'm not in a relationship with them to gain status. Like, I don't even talk about that to people, or that's a personal thing for me. That's not something that should mean anything to anybody else. And if I'm not, like, I remember my grandma, whenever I didn't have a boyfriend, she would always say to me, "You're such a pretty girl, Brenda. Why don't you have a boyfriend?" And there's other things I want to talk about in here. I'm worried that my family is watching this, and I don't want to say a lot of things either. Maybe they won't. I don't know. But because I think for or at least for me, and I can't say for other people, like, something that is important to me a lot of time is that I don't want to offend other people, and I definitely don't want to hurt my family or get them upset, but I just want to be able to be me and it be okay. And that's a struggle, I think. Especially when certain things in your brain are confusing, like when in your head you feel like a boy, and sometimes in other ways that has manifested in other ways that are weird that other people might not understand and you might not feel comfortable talking about on video, or I wouldn't feel comfortable, or anybody might not. I know that I wouldn't, because if my feelings aren't, I don't want to upset them. That makes sense, I think. But also, it's always difficult when you're different in this way, is that all your life as a girl, I think I was always okay with not having friends. But there's also this other part of me that kind of wanted to connect with people. I remember there was this time where, because I read all the sci-fi fantasy books, and there was a series of books that I read where, like, the people were empathic or whatever, and they could, like, read the thoughts, or, like, even in Star Trek, I compare a lot of the things in the world with, like, either TV shows I watch or movies. I'll use, like, lines from movies, quotes, I memorize all of them, and then I'll use them sometimes appropriately, sometimes not, in social situations. But and Star Trek is a huge one. That was a huge, like, all of the series, especially Next Generation for me. So, like, Deanna I thought was, as a female, was a pretty awesome, someone kind of I aspire to, especially her ability to read people's emotions. Because when I was younger, I definitely had a hard time with it. But as I got older, the thing that was frustrating to me is I never felt like I had that intuitive thing that other girls did. But then what ended up happening is I realized like I said, I think in patterns. I said in one of my earlier videos is that I started if I studied if I didn't I never listened to words people use to describe themselves, because they're really they really match up with what is really going on. So I always like to say I define people by their actions and their behaviors and the conduct than by the words they use to describe themselves. Because what I realized is, and a friend not that long ago said I was very perceptive. But what it is just that I watch somebody and I look for discrepancies in how they act, and that's how I know if something's wrong, something's good or bad, depending on how they act, and if it differs or if it's in line with something before, and then I know. And the problem with that is that now I know this stuff. I'll watch someone, I'll be interacting with them, and I'll know what's really going on, even if they say something differently, but I won't know exactly what it is, number one, or two, what to do with the information, even if I did. I know asking people, like assessing people, like telling people, okay, you're saying all this right now, but I actually been watching you, and I think this and this is going on. People do not like that. Two, people also don't like when you ask, when you check in, you say, are you mad, or you want feedback or verification or validation. They feel like that's a sign of weakness or whatever. And so that is not a good thing to do either, I found. Sometimes even if you're really sure with what it is actually going on and trying to act accordingly, because what I would do for myself in this situation is definitely not usually what other people want, and I know that. And so then what will end up happening is maybe I'll shut down or freak out or not know what to do, or how to act or whatever. And so it's like I might be perceptive, but if I don't know what to do now with the information that I'm able to ascertain, then does that really even matter? Because one of the things that I found that I'm better at able to do is I always say that when speaking a secret language, and that has changed over the years from me not knowing what they were saying at all to me actually now when I hang out with them. It doesn't always happen in all social situations because each one is so organic and different, and different nuances and stuff, so I don't always understand. But when it comes to the women in my family now, I do actually know the language. I know the language, I can hear it. It's like my mom can speak Italian, but my Aunt Mary says that she understands Italian, she can't speak it though. And so it's like that with me, where I'm with them and I can understand everything that's going on, but I can't speak it back to them. What I can do is, and they don't like, is tell them if they ask, like tell them what I see is going on, which they don't want to know. Like, I know that, so-and-so, one of my cousins said that to her, but like she really meant this, and then she responded in this way because this. I can say that, but people don't want you to do that. They want you to participate in the way they do, but I don't know how to do what they're doing. I just know how to interpret it. So if the conversation ever gets brought to me, I either don't say anything or I start talking about one of my weird obsessions that I don't care about. Like maybe I'll go on and be like, did you know that according to gender-based studies, and if they do MRI scans of the brain, like we get really mad at guys if a girl's walking by and she's provocative and like, he's talking to you, blah, 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 and all of a sudden he looks away and he looks at her, we get mad. And maybe they can control their reaction to this, but actually, according to MRI scans, that when they put males in them and they presented them with provocative images, not only like that pre-optic medial area of the brain actually lit up, like with like it has such blood flow that it lit up in their brains, and that's the actual part of the brain that is in charge of like sexual stimulation and the control of a man's ability to hold or obtain an erection. I'm like, and it's let's think of a couple of things in this situation, on this whole scenario, or is that part of the brain is 2.5 times larger in guys. So whether they're gay or female, whether they're gay or they're into women, if they see a provocative image or something that they like, that part of the brain lights up. That part controls, so there's a lot of things going on. It's all happening. So the lizard part of the brain is that primal part of their brain that they have no conscious control over. So maybe they can control their reaction, but if it's too crazy for, like, it's something they didn't expect, it literally might cause them to stumble or to look or whatever. And I think getting mad at amen at this is kind of foolish, because they've done the same studies for women with MRI scans, and they present them with provocative images depending on like whatever the woman says that she finds provocative, and it doesn't light up that way. And if you think about it, seduction for us, or sexual stimulation, is much more complicated and psychological. There has to be a number of variables in place for us to get turned on. And just seeing a provocative image or seeing a sexy guy doesn't turn us on. We might be like, ooh, he's hot. But we don't actually, none of our girly bits start getting all crazy unless like other elements are there. Like maybe we're attracted to that person and then they look at us in a way that's attractive, or they say the right thing or whatever. There has to be multiple variables for us to get turned on. So because we don't think like guys, and because that doesn't happen to us, we get angry when we're talking to a guy and he looks at a girl. There's no reason to get angry. It's out of his control. Like maybe he can, for the most part, usually control looking at it, but every once in a while it might be such a intense stimulus that he might not be able to control it for that second. And I think getting angry it's not a logical reaction to that situation. It's not a logical emotion. Like if your emotion makes sense, like I'm not saying you shouldn't feel that, but actually, you know what I mean? As much as he has a hard time like controlling whether or not he looks at the girl, like, you know, maybe you feel a sort of anger, but actually acting on it and actually letting him know and yelling at him isn't going to fix the situation. It's just going to complicate things, and he's going to get confused and be like, what do you want me to do about it, and try to hide it or whatever, and then it's just going to make him feel guilty and shameful, and then he's going to yell at you and tell you you're overthinking things or whatever, and then it's just going to cause problems. And I'll say all of this and they'll just sit there staring at me like I don't even know, like I'm a freak or I'm an alien from outer space. And then they'll just start talking about what they were talking about before and just ignore me like I didn't say anything. Like I said, I used to, in one of my earlier videos, I said I have bipolar 1, and I don't think that is a misdiagnosis. I definitely think I have that, and that's something maybe I'll get into another video. The thing is that everyone has always attributed all the problems that I've had in my life with the bipolar. But I always knew that wasn't the case for a number of reasons. One of them being like I started going to support groups for people with bipolar several years ago, and I never felt like at first I thought I would feel comfortable, but then when it happened, and when this happened more than once, I realized maybe first of all that I shouldn't talk, but second of all maybe my problem was bigger than bipolar. What happened is, like what happened when I said with the girls, everybody would be talking and I wouldn't know, like, first of all, I wouldn't know when to say anything. I would try to figure out when was the appropriate place to interject a comment, and that was difficult. But when I would finally find a place to say what it is I want to say, I would, you know, it'd be like this deluge of whatever it was that I had to get out. Probably a bunch of now, because they've been talking for a while and I didn't know how to interject, probably multiple things I wanted to say all at once. And the same thing would happen where I would say all the stuff and they would stop and they would look at me. All of them would look uncomfortable, and then somebody would bring back out the comment that the person prior to me said previously, and they would just act like I didn't say anything at all. Every once in a while somebody would realize that maybe they should, you know, like maybe I was uncomfortable or maybe whatever, and they would bring me back like, well, what Brenda said before was an interesting point, and then maybe they'll talk about it a little bit. But again, if I start trying to say anything, like whatever I would say would be so weird for everybody, they would pretty much ignore it. One time, I think I got so excited they actually asked me to leave the group. They said I was being disruptive, and they asked me if I was manic, and I wasn't. I just was frustrated that I wasn't able to get my point across, or that they didn't seem to be able to understand what it was I was trying to say. So, you know, like when it comes to the whole expectation of things in the world, I think as girls with Asperger's, people have higher expectation of us as girls, and when we fail to meet those expectations, especially when we've been either undiagnosed or misdiagnosed, we, instead of projecting that outwardly, we project it inwardly, and there's a lot of self-loathing and feelings, a sense of failure, that we just don't measure up, and that we're defective in some way. And the more I start to read all these girls' stories and stuff, I start to realize that we're not defective, we're just different. And I actually think some of the things that make us different don't make us better, but they're actually really good things. The fact that I don't think we might lash out sometimes and we might seem mean, but we're not trying to be mean. I don't think sometimes we're resentful and we'll hurt other people, but I don't, and I can't speak for everybody, but I'll say this for myself. Like, I never like the idea that someone's been hurt due to my actions. Like, even if I'm angry in the moment and I want to hurt them, like, as soon as it happens, I feel bad. I feel really guilty about it. Like, even something really horrific happened to me when I was little. I mean, really, like, really bad. And the person ended up killing himself. And, I remember the first time I heard that, like, I was numb at first. But then actually the crazy thing is, like, I felt really guilty and I felt bad and I felt horrible that they happened. And I think, and I never want people to have capital punishment or because I don't think that killing somebody who's done something bad will help them, or even punishing people. I think that sometimes people need help, but I realize that's not how society looks at things, or that necessarily that even works. And so in my head I'm like, there has to be another way than just punishment or justice or any of that. Like, why do people need to have some justice for something? Like, what happened to you happened to you. It's in the past. Like, why can't we learn from it, or like have the other person do something that is beneficial? I don't know. There has to be something that is better than just putting people in jail and having them rot in there, or have people get killed for. I don't know. I'm not going to get on my high horse right now. That's not. I don't want to do that, because I have a Princess Warrior code, and one of them is like the whole Voltaire's, cultivate your own garden and leave mine alone. So I when it comes to things, like, I don't want to try to, I mean, I do want people to understand more about people with Asperger's, but at the same time, I don't want to have an agenda where I'm forcing, like, my ideals onto other people. Asking people, I think, for acceptance of us and more understanding is not the same thing. I understand that when it comes to things like criminals and punishment and stuff like that, everybody has a very different way of thinking, and I don't want, I would like people to think sometimes maybe a little bit more independently, like outside of the patterns of, like, convention or the norms of society and stuff like that. But that's like, and that's why I like to write some blogs on that and everything. But I'm not going to try to force my ideals on people. Because I think that sometimes if you try to utilize the tactics that you hate to get other people, to persuade people, coerce people, or like if, like, as a vigilante, like if you like the Punisher, he kills as a form of justice, and Daredevil doesn't like that, or like same thing with, like, Batman, like, that's the line he won't cross, and he says, like, because he realizes, like, to become like his enemy, like, to take on the tactics of his enemy, then he might become like his enemy, and that's a fine line that you have to be careful not to cross, and that is difficult. And so having a code sometimes I think is important, and for myself, but also, like, I try not to, and I know that I don't always do this, but, like, if I don't like something I like the way they are in the world, like if someone is manipulative or whatever, if I don't like that, then I try not to be that as a person. Now, admittedly, I actually for a long time had that in my code, that I would never be manipulative, but I revised it a few years ago, that I would realize, like, even before I knew this, like, I realized, like, how much I had been taken advantage by people. I realized to say that, like, I won't be manipulative to other people, but I am capable of being manipulative if I need to be, and to protect myself. So it's not really manipulative as in, like, going, and I think that's, once again, plays into gender. I think more often the way we do things are on defense, not on offense. So if someone attacks me, then I might fight back, but I'm not going to go attack someone who hasn't provoked me. I'm not going to manipulate somebody to get something I want, but if someone tries to manipulate me, then I might manipulate them back to get in a way to defend myself against them. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't feel good when you realize that you've been taken advantage of. That doesn't necessarily mean that you want to be vindictive and get back, but you might need to learn a different way of protecting yourself against people that are like that. And I don't think that is necessarily... I feel like I'm contradicting myself here because I'm saying you shouldn't, like, killing somebody is different. Like, if someone is attacking you and then you kill them to defend yourself, that's not, because you can not, like one woman used to always do or does, like the whole non-violent restraint. You can restrain someone, you can stop someone from hurting you without necessarily killing them. And if someone's trying to manipulate you, maybe you're not going to manipulate them into anything, but you might manipulate them back into, you might look at it as like a game of psychological chess, where if they try to manipulate you, you see it as a game now, they make this move and like, I'm not going to let you do this to me, I'm going to extract myself to this, so I'm not going to manipulate you into doing anything you would never do on your own, but I'm going to manipulate you as in I'm not going to let you manipulate me. I don't know if I'm making a clear distinction with that, but I hope I am, and if anybody like has any questions, wants to talk on that more, that's fine. These are all about my personal philosophies, which I didn't really mean to get into on these videos as much, but maybe I will. I don't know. We'll see how some of them might unfold organically. But basically, when it comes to expectation, I try to look at the world as I don't have expectations of other, like, no matter what has happened to me in the past, when I meet somebody else new, I might be leery of them to some extent, but I never think they're gonna be this or that or anything like that. It's like a clean slate with each person, and it's always been frustrating to me when I meet somebody new and they're like, I'm not like blah blah blah, and I'm like, I never said that you were. And I started, like, when I started reading doing all that brain research and reading up on psychology and even like Freud and the id and ego and all kinds of stuff, I started realizing that a lot of times what people are doing, and not to get too upset, that they might projecting their own insecurities or weirdness onto you, and and of course, like, I'm still human. Even if I think differently, I'm still might do things that frustrate me that other people do. I just think sometimes what a huge difference is, like, motivation, or like, okay, one thing that I want to cover real quick before this video, and I think we'll kind of clarify the point that I'm trying to make, is lies. A lot of things I've been hearing about how Terrans or Earthlings or neurotypicals think that people that are autistic or have Aspergers, like, don't like lies. Or hate lies, or don't lie, and that is not fully true. That's not what it is. I think you're missing it. What we don't like, for me at least, and I can only really speak for me, but I think is that people will present themselves. They'll say, like, someone will say, like, I'm honest all the time. Like, I hate drama, but they'll be like the epicenter of drama. Like, they'll tell you something that you'll take at face value, and then, like, you'll feel taken advantage of. That's different, like, because the other thing they'll say, they'll be like, especially for the girls, like, we might hate lies, but we might lie ourselves. Like, I turned 40 last year, because I'm 41 now, and I didn't like it, and so, like, a lot of times if I had a profile anywhere, I put my age as younger. Thing is, if someone asked me, I always, like, told the truth, but, it just made me feel better to be younger, but, so I do lie sometimes. I like, but I don't, and that probably does mislead people. So I want to say, like, I don't want to mislead people, because that obviously is misleading people. I just think that my motivation, like, is differently. Like, I'm not trying to, I don't know. I don't think I'm verbal. I just know that I think that we don't like lying, like, as much, like, as it's not that we don't like lying. I mean, I think that everybody lies sometimes in life. I think it's impossible to live your whole entire life without lying by omission or fudging things or whatever. I think it's going to happen. Because everyone is human. But I think that the misnomer comes from, like, first of all, like, we're very direct, so we say things how they are. We don't try to be indirect, so we don't usually say, like, those small lies. Like, if we tell you that we think that you're beautiful, we probably think that. If we tell you whatever, that we think you're smart, we're not going to say those things unless we mean them. But that in no way negates the fact that there are going to be times in our life when we don't like things or whatever, that we might either not tell the whole truth about something, or like something we no longer like about ourselves, we might change it or whatever. And I don't know, like I said, I can't speak for everybody, I can only speak for myself, so I don't know how that like manifests for everybody. But again, like when it comes to expectations of everybody else, that I think that if you have too many expectations of people when you meet them, that's always going to set them up for failure and yourself up for disappointment. And I think letting things unfold the way they need to is probably better for everybody. I know, like, a lot of people have been hurt in the past, but I don't think that fear of that same thing happening to you again is a good way to live your life. I mean, it's going to impact how you conduct yourself in spite of whatever it is you try to do, but I don't think that should in any way affect, having fun. Alright, I should end this now. Alright, peace out, everybody. Bye.